Hey, thanks again for signing up to receive my free photography newsletter and also receive this free video tutorial on how to improve your own photos. I'm hoping that this information will help you find the shortcut to the tips and techniques and improve your shots that took me, years of trial and error in the field. So let me give you an example from my own photography experience. When I first visited the Taj Mahal, I got up with everyone else at 6 a.m. and sort of scrummed through the entrance and ran to get a couple of frames without anyone else in the frame. And those shots were just kind of the standard Taj Mahal shot. And I got back to the hotel and I was sort of flipping through the shots I'd gotten, and the light was fairly nice, and the shots turned out okay, but it just didn't really, to me, I hadn't really said anything new, and I hadn't really captured the spirit of the place as I felt it. I just sort of documented it, here's the Taj Mahal. So later in the day, I had a few more hours to walk around Agra and explore around the Taj Mahal, and so I was trying to find maybe a slightly different angle on the Taj Mahal, so I actually walked around behind it. There's a little riverbank behind the Taj Mahal because the river runs just behind it, and I hired a local boatman. I paid him a couple dollars to ferry me across the river to get sort of a different angle. And as I was over there, I ran into this little kid, this smart-ass kid who was riding around on a camel trying to sell a camel ride to me, which I wasn't really interested in. He was really sarcastic, almost taunting me to take a ride on this camel, which I, again, wasn't very interested in. But this kid had so much spirit and so much energy that I really wanted to get a shot of him with the Taj. So I sort of waited back from the riverbank a little bit, and I was just sort of shooting off in the distance. But I was also noticing from time to time, what he was doing. And at one point, he finally just kind of gave up and then realized that I probably wasn't going to do the camel ride. And so he kind of lay down on the camel and was taking sort of like a nap, but still taunting me from the side. And then I noticed that he had kind of lined up perfectly, like in the bottom third of the frame with the Taj Mahal in the background. It was just an awesome shot. The sun was going down, it was great light. And as he was taunting me, I got a few more frames off, just a couple. And those shots to me really said so much more about the spirit of that place than the simple standard Taj Mahal shot. Let's start with the most common sort of complaint or problem that I hear most friends and family talking about when they come back from a long trip and they've got a bunch of photos and they're kind of looking at them on their computer and they're not exactly happy with them. I think the most common thing that I hear people say is, this looked much better in real life when I was there taking the shot. So let's look at why this is such a common problem for so many photographers. As photographers, the challenge is we're trying to capture the spirit of the place. We're trying to distill the essence of a location that we visited down into a few very small slices of time. That's the challenge. And I think for most people who come back from a trip with photos that they're not happy with, the root of the problem is that they didn't capture the spirit of the place. They weren't able to effectively summarize the essence of the place that they visited down into 20, 30, maybe 50 shots that they can put up on a slideshow, maybe on Facebook. We've all had the stereotype of a friend or relative who's come back from a vacation with this giant pile of photos, and we're tortured by sitting through this boring slideshow. Why is this slideshow boring? Well, the reason is because they didn't capture the spirit of the place. They're not effectively making you, as the viewer, as the audience, they're not giving you a connection to the place because they never really capture the spirit of the place. So that's the reason why their photos fail. So how can we improve this? How can we capture the spirit of the place? Well, one way to do it is to start thinking like a movie director. I'll use Steven Spielberg, for example. So what can Steven Spielberg teach you about better photography? Well, if you look at the language of film, as in movie film versus still photography, they're both obviously very visual mediums. And of course, with moving photography, with movies, the filmmaker, the director, has a little bit more time to sort of tell the story visually, versus with still photography, you've only got very small snapshots of time that you're trying to communicate the essence of the place to your audience. Both you as the photographer and Steven Spielberg as the director, you're both essentially trying to accomplish the same thing. You are trying to make a connection, a direct connection with your audience, and make them feel the emotion of the place that you felt while you were there. Steven Spielberg's in Nepal shooting Indiana Jones. You might be in Nepal shooting your friend on a backpacking trip. Both you and Spielberg have the same goal of connecting with your audience. So let's look at ways that Steven Spielberg can help you improve your travel photography. So if you've ever taken a cinematography class before, you've probably learned about the basic types of shots that directors will use to create the sense of place with their audience on the big screen. So I'd recommend that the next time you watch a movie, consciously realize and watch and sort of mark in your mind the types of shots that the director's using. So the opening shot of most movies is often what's called an establishing shot, which is a wide shot, like a landscape shot, to tell you where the story is being told, to kind of anchor you in the place, just give you a sense for what is the environment that the story is being told in. Then often they'll move a little bit tighter to a more medium shot, like kind of a medium zoom focus, maybe on a group of people or a village or something. Then probably a bit more close up, maybe like a portrait shot. And then often you'll see a director use a very tight detail shot, like maybe a shot of a hand on a pistol or something very, like a very, almost like a macro shot, like a detail shot. So if you adapt this format to your own photography, you can start with the establishing shot and then be sure that you're also covering the other three. I think most photographers tend to only take establishing shots. They take these wide angle. This is a picture of a tree, a forest, an ocean, a bird, a man in front of it, a boat, the sun. It's not telling a story. The story is not distilled down into something that's relatable to the audience. That's a huge failure of most beginning photographers. It's totally fine to use the establishing shots, and I would recommend that you do, especially when you're just starting out the day. Maybe start with a few establishing shots, you kind of get into the rhythm of shooting, but be sure to put on a medium zoom or take the time to walk closer to get a medium shot, and then go all the way up to a detail shot. Detail shots, food can be great detail shots, maybe a handicraft, maybe a detail of someone's hand. For the medium shots, maybe use a portrait, like a tight portrait on someone, not someone who's walking away from you with their back to you. And then for another sort of slightly wider medium shot, you might take a shot of a particular shop or a building. You follow this rhythm to create this visual narrative that then tells the story to your viewer. So I think you'll find as you start to use this technique while you're shooting, you'll be a little bit more conscious about what you're actually describing and sharing with your audience. You'll think more like Spielberg, and you're telling a story. You're not just documenting. You're trying to share a story with your audience, whatever the story might be. It can be a story that you're obviously making up, and that's why taking great photos can be such a challenge, but also such a joy, because when you succeed, it's so rewarding. When you can elicit this response from your audience and you get feedback from your audience, you realize that you've sort of succeeded at capturing the spirit of the place. So make that your goal, not just sort of a lightly strung together sequence of sort of picture postcard snapshots. Look for those details. Look for the wide shot that will give the viewer the sense of where you were, but then tell the story through the details, because that's really where the real connection will come from with your audience. Okay, so that's it for the first video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found some information in there that you can use to improve your own shots. I also want to let you know about 7 additional videos that I put together to share with you some more tips and tricks that I picked up over more than 20 years of photography experience in the field. Basically, these videos walk you through 7 of my favorite shortcuts for taking great shots. The idea behind this series is to share with you my favorite 7 shortcuts to improving your own shots without having to spend a lot of time reading a camera manual or some boring photography magazine, or spending a lot of time mired in the technical details. I remember when I was starting out that I was really frustrated by these articles that felt like they were written by the guy at the camera store who hadn't spent much time actually out in the field shooting. So the idea here is I want to share with you 7 practical shortcuts to taking great shots. So I'll cover how to take great portrait photos, great photos at the beach, how to create motion with still photography, how to take great sunset photos, how to take great wildlife photos, how to get started with underwater photography for less than $200, and how to take great photos at night. So initially, I created this series for friends and family who were asking me questions like, how do you get this effect? Or how did you take this shot? but they don't really want to hear all this stuff about shutter speed and aperture and ISO settings and all these kind of technical details. They just want to learn the basic techniques about how to use their camera. So in this short course, I'll walk you through each of these techniques, and each video takes 5 minutes or less. I've designed this course with your time in mind. You know, most people don't want to spend hours reading their camera manual or reading photography magazines. They just want to know, the quick tips to get better photos now. So each video takes 5 minutes or less, so the entire series is actually less than half an hour. So it's designed for you if you're busy, you just want to learn the quickest route to taking better photos. So if this sounds like something you might be interested in, just click the link below and you can find out all the details about each course and how to get instant access online through my website right now. So thanks again for watching this far and taking the time to check out this video. I'm really hoping that I can help you to improve your own photos. So until the next newsletter, thanks again for signing up, and I'll talk to you soon.